Uruguay is pioneering a novel way to fight its war on drugs. The government there will sell marijuana directly to citizens and use the profits to rehabilitate addicts. That's the plan, at least, after the lower house of the country's Congress voted to legalise marijuana. It's a move which will be watched very closely by the big drugs producers across Central and South America, and it is also being monitored closely in our world's newsroom. Let's take you there. Tom is there for us. What's the feeling from other countries then, Tom?
Well, Lucy, Uruguay sits in a region which is no stranger to the illegal drugs trade. In fact, in Colombia and Mexico, we've seen these very forceful approaches by the government there to combat the drugs trade. And it's had mixed results in those countries and also, crucially, a lot of deaths. So this bold move by Uruguay is obviously determined to not have so many deaths. And let's get the mood in Uruguay by talking to Vladimir Hernandez. Now, he's from our Mundo service. Vladimir's from Venezuela, actually, but he knows a lot about this topic. So, Vladimir, in Venezuela and Uruguay, obviously the drugs culture is nothing new. What do people on the ground actually think of this new measure?
I think there might be a lot of wariness. People might understand the government's arguments about, well, yeah, this is an alternative way to tackle drugs and drug trafficking in particular, especially because of the levels of violence throughout the region, which are significantly high. We're talking about tens of thousands of people dying. But also I think there's still a lot of people who might not be entirely convinced that legalising drugs is the way to tackle drug trafficking, especially because many might be afraid that this will increase consumption of drugs.
And what about regionally? How closely are other countries watching what Uruguay are doing?
The interesting thing about this case is that it could be the start of a shift in the anti-drug policy throughout Latin America. Many countries who are big producers of drugs, of illegal drugs, will be watching this closely, although for Uruguay it's easier because it's a small country. The problem is small relative to other countries. But countries like Mexico, one of the biggest countries with the biggest drug cartels in the world, has already said, well, we are going to be watching this very closely, and if it works, we might have a look into it.
Okay, Vladimir, thank you very much. Now, Lucy, it's not just South America which has a problem with drugs. Of course, Myanmar, Laos and Thailand are massive producers of illegal drugs, and they flood onto the streets of Asia and the nightclubs of, say, Bangkok. Now, let's take you over to our Vietnamese service and talk to Hami, who knows a lot about this as well. And Hami, the notorious Golden Triangle, the place in the jungles near the Mekong River where a lot of illegal drugs start their life. You know, how much of a problem is that in these countries, and how did the government tackle that problem there?
It used to be a really big place where the drugs been produced. But I think that since 2005, the UN has stepped in and they do a lot of work there. But still there is this second biggest after Afghanistan. So it's in the hot spot there.
And of course, as we saw in Uruguay, this is a new approach, obviously, to allow more drugs to hopefully curb the use. In these countries in Southeast Asia, it's a very harsh approach to containing even just a little bit of drugs, isn't it?
Say, for example, Vietnam or China, if you have in possession of heroin or cocaine, say Vietnam, 600 grams, you got a death penalty. And for cannabis and marijuana, it's illegal to have it, but then it's not a big problem as the heroin and the cocaine in these Asian countries.
Okay, Hami, thank you very much. And of course, Lucy, if anyone's watching from Montevideo or anywhere in the region, please do get in touch with us on the BBC website to share your views or even upload a video and tell us what your thoughts. Back to you.
Yeah, we always like to hear from our viewers. Thanks very much for joining us, Tom.